Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we got a very interesting Ask the Developer interview for Mario Kart World. Through this interview, we've learned a lot about the game and the development of this game. We now know there are over 200 music tracks in it. We know when it started development. We know what was going on internally at Nintendo when they shifted to the booster course pass for Mario Kart 8. So if you're interested in learning more about the development side of Mario Kart World, but also more about the gameplay, different types of missions you can find in the game. They show this one where you have to play as the cow driving through a herd of cows. That's what we're getting into today. We are talking about the development of Mario Kart World and everything else we can learn through this Ask the Developer interview. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Mario Kart World content, but also switch to coverage leading up to launch, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. I hope your morning is going well. So yeah, I woke up to this nice little surprise from Nintendo, an in-depth Ask the Developer interview for Mario Kart World. And I think one of the most interesting things we learned through it is that Mario Kart World actually started development back in 2017, which is longer than I think a lot of us expected. It makes sense logistically. It's like, okay, well, that's after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but they also had ARMS, they had the booster course pass, they had some work on tour. So to learn that it actually started back in 2017 is very interesting to me. And there's a lot of other little tidbits like that in the interview. Now, we're not going to go over everything, so I highly recommend checking out the link in the description to read through the full thing. But I wanted to highlight the most important things that I grabbed from this interview. So first up here, Kosuke Yabuki, the producer of the game, was asked, could you tell us how development for this game got started? Yabuki replied, "We were thinking about what to do for the next Mario Kart game even during the development of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and we began prototyping in March of 2017. So a month before 8 Deluxe came out, they were already getting started on Mario Kart World, which makes sense. You know, you want to get a head start. You want to start getting that game doc design, pitch going for the next game." He then says it was at the end of that year when we officially started work on it as a project. So March of 2017, they start getting the ideas ready for the game, and then by the end of 2017, it is entering production. They are working on it as their main project. That also lines up because that's around the time that ARMS had its final update, and that's from the same team. He said, quotes, "I felt that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we were able to perfect the formula that we've been following in the series up to that point, where players race on individual courses. That's why this time we wanted the gameplay to involve players driving around a large world, and we began creating a world map like this." And they have this awesome picture of the map laid out on the table where they conducted the interview. There's also a lot of cool concept art in this as well. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Of course, they talk a lot about it being an open world game and how they didn't want to simply just add more content and more variations. They wanted to really change the concept and make the game playable in a larger world, change up the experience with Knockout Tour. And the interviewer asked, I'd like to ask about the title first. Was it always the plan to call it Mario Kart World rather than Mario Kart 9? And Yabuki replied, "If the idea had just been to add more courses, then I think we would have called it Mario Kart 9. But that wasn't our approach this time. We wanted to take the series to the next level, so we decided to drop the numbering this time and go with a completely new title, Mario Kart World. So we'd already added Mario Kart World to the concept art from early stages of development." And as you can see here, we have some concept art of the original world map, but also the original logos and, yeah, the title. We don't know exactly when this is dated, but Yabuki is saying it's from early stages of development. You imagine this is 2017, 2018 era for this game. And, I mean, the name has been such a hot contention point for a lot of people, or at least it was before we had the reveal. A lot of people thought it would be Mario Kart 9. There was a whole group of people that didn't think it would be that because Mario Kart Tour is kind of Mario Kart 9. But now we know if it had just been a more linear evolution of the series in terms of just adding more content, new mechanics and new tracks and everything, yeah, they would have called it Mario Kart 9. But because they did such a radically different thing here, they actually decided to call it Mario Kart World, which I think is a great fit. It's a great name. It makes so much sense. We have rumors that the next Mario movie is going to be called Super Mario World. There's Super Nintendo World. Mario Kart World just feels right. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a thing and a trend with Mario games. Super Mario Party World, anybody? I feel like that could line up. But yeah, we have this cool concept art here showing some early designs of the world map here. And I mean, they're not that different. I mean, they are obviously, but general basic theme applies. Island in the middle, bridge crossing over it, Peach's castle over there, and then your different biome types, of course. But yeah, for those of you that were wondering why it wasn't called Mario Kart 9, it's because, well, It was a little bit more than just another entry. It is a whole evolution and a re-breaking down what Mario Kart is in terms of like what that means. Like, it's not just you're racing on tracks, it's this whole interconnected open world, so they wanted to title it appropriately to signify that. The interviewer asked the rest of the development staff partaking in the interview what they thought about the game when it was first pitched to them. A couple people were worried about how it would run on the Switch 1, because as we also learned throughout this interview, is that it actually did start as a Switch 1 game. Sato here said, we've also considered it important for the Mario Kart series to run at 60 FPS, and we believe that split-screen multiplayer is an essential element. I was excited, but at the same time, I felt like it would be tough. Atsuko Asahi, the music lead on this game, was asked what their thoughts were on the game from a sound perspective, and Asahi said, all the different landscapes are connected and the world is expanding. What am I going to do? That was my first thought. Until then, I'd been composing custom-made tracks for each course based on the weather and time of day, but now with everything being connected and with the ability to drive anywhere, there are so many more things you need to consider. We need lots of sounds to fill the gaps between courses, and because players take different routes and drive at different speeds, we have to assume that the timing of the background music transitions will vary. I thought we'd never finish development if we approached sound creation the same way as before, and I was worried about whether we'd actually be able to get it done. Yabuki talks about how it being an open world had them remaking all kinds of features and discussing whether or not features from past games would return in this one or be changed. They also talk a bit about conveying that sense of adventure and keeping the game a little bit more playful in its tone, and that definitely translates to the art style. They have this image here demonstrating the sleek design of Mario Kart 8 Mario here, and then the more playful design for Mario Kart World Mario. And I know the art style is a little contentious, especially some of the character designs like Donkey Kong, although I think that's a different issue entirely. I actually think Mario Kart World looks incredible. I love the animations, all the little boings that Mario does when he jumps. It's so much more animated than it was before. And, you know, at a quick glance, it's like, oh, it doesn't look that different. But when you actually, like, really look at what's going on with the animations and the backgrounds and everything with this game, I think, at least in my opinion, it looks much better than Mario Kart 8. And here we are to what I think is one of the most important things we learned from this interview. They're talking about how the game is 24 players and how that's a lot for a regular console to handle, right? They need more power. And they revealed that they actually started development on Mario Kart World for Nintendo Switch. Sato says, quote, we were analyzing from a calm and collected programming perspective whether it would be possible to accommodate 24 players. In game development, you first finish making all of the different elements and then optimize them to run on the system. But when trying to accommodate 24 players, we had to make all kinds of processing optimizations right from the start as we were making it. Then he talks a little bit about the concessions that had to be made to get it even running at all on the Switch 1. He talks about how it was difficult for them to incorporate everything they wanted, so they were always conscious of what they were giving up in return. Quotes, we discussed things like toning down the visuals, lowering the resolution, and we even considered dropping the frame rate to 30 FPS in some cases. It was a tough situation. The interviewer asks, well, what did you decide to give up on in the end? And they all kind of just look at each other, laugh in the room, and say, well, we didn't give up on anything. We couldn't decide on anything to get rid of. Yabuki says, quotes, we worked on it while kicking the can down the road in terms of deciding what to give up on, so at some point we knew it was going to get messy. But as we decided to release the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, we thought that would give us a bit more time to continue development. That's when the conversation of moving it to the Nintendo Switch 2 system came up, and this suddenly opened up a bunch of possibilities on what we could do. It was truly a ray of hope. So, key talking points from the first part of this Mario Kart World interview. Prototyping started in March of 2017. They started working on it as more of a full project at the end of 2017, and it started development on the Nintendo Switch 1, which makes sense if it was in development back in 2017, that it would have been initially planned as a Switch 1 game. And now we know that this was a popular theory, of course, but now we know the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass kind of did give them a little bit of leeway. And I think maybe they didn't get into it here, but I think maybe that entire DLC was greenlit just to push Mario Kart World off a couple of more years. Nintendo knew they had to get something Mario Kart out in terms of bringing more people in and giving that fan base more options to play in terms of tracks and stuff. So they released the Booster Course Pass that kind of puts Mario Kart World, maybe not on pause necessarily, but it gave them more time with the game in terms of development, which is why we're seeing an 8-year development cycle for a game like this. And it just allowed them to wait and put it on Switch 2 and not have to make those visual, you know, the graphics, the frame rate, not have to make those concessions to get it running on Switch 1. But this right here definitely has me wondering, well, if this is true for the Mario Kart team, if they were given that ability of just like, okay, well, this game isn't running on Switch 1 that well, we're going to wait for Switch 2, I wonder if the same might apply to some other developers, most importantly, 3D Mario, the 3D Mario team, EPD8, and Donkey Kong Bonanza. We have no idea what that team was working on after Odyssey released at the end of 2017, and I find it hard to believe it's just been Donkey Kong Bonanza. So what if Donkey Kong Bonanza was either greenlit in a similar way to the Booster Course Pass as a kind of more in-between project while they get things running for the other game, but also maybe Donkey Kong Bonanza started development early, but because of all the destructible elements and stuff and the environments, maybe they were like, hey, we need to save this for Switch 2, and that's why it's such an early title on the console, because it was made for Switch 1. They just couldn't get it running properly on that console. Because I still just find it so hard to believe that Bonanza... I find it hard to believe that Bonanza took them that entire time. I still think a 3D Mario game is on the horizon sooner than a lot of people think, maybe within the next 18 months or so. If the Mario Kart team was able to put World on hold a little bit and have a little bit of an in-between thing with the Booster Course Pass, I don't see why the same couldn't necessarily apply to the 3D Mario team. And Donkey Kong Bonanza could kind of be an additional project next to a 3D Mario game. Just a thought, not confirmed, obviously, but I thought this was all very interesting. And the Booster Course Pass thing especially, I feel like, confirms some theories. I've been under the assumption for a while that the Booster Course Pass was them kind of just, you know, biding their time and taking all of that content from Tour and just kind of reworking it a little bit, and that seems to be the case. But let's read more about the shift to Switch 2 for the developments of this game. They were asked, when did you decide to move development of this game to Switch 2? Sato said, Yabuki-san first brought it up around 2020. Back then, we'd already had the idea of the next system's expected specs, but it wasn't until a bit later that we actually received working development units. Until then, we just had to proceed with development based on provisional estimates. So they didn't receive development kits until a little bit later than 2020. We heard that I think it's the NVIDIA Tegra chip, right? That was supposedly finalized in 2021. So I think there's been some rumors that dev kits were sent out, or maybe like very early dev kits were sent to some developers in 2021. So that about lines up, right? So it would have been towards the end of COVID, or maybe just during COVID, that they actually received dev kits for the Switch 2. Sato said, quote, when we were developing for Nintendo Switch, we often worried whether we could find the right balance between planning and performance. Of course, the Switch system's performance is sufficient for developing different kinds of games, but if we had included everything we wanted to in this game's fast world, then it wouldn't have run at 60 FPS, and we would have suffered from constant frame rate drops. There were a lot of people on the team who were really worried about whether we could actually manage it, but once we decided to release the game on Switch 2, we expected our worries to evaporate all at once. I remember being overjoyed when I discovered we could express even more than we originally set out to do. So once again, just kind of reiterating what I said, but if this was true for the Mario Kart team, I hope the same was true for maybe a lot of developers in terms of internal Nintendo teams that maybe were on Switch 1 projects back in 2020, 2021. You know, I think of a Luigi's Mansion 4 as a game that likely would have started around that time. I'm hoping that Next Level said, hey, Nintendo, we want to make this game run the best it can, look the best it can. Can we put it on Switch 2? And I imagine that's likely what ended up happening in that game's case in particular. Asahi talks a lot more about the music and how it was a challenge, kind of making it all connect in an open world, so you have those seamless transitions, all the little different kind of in-between tracks you'll need for a gameplay like that, where you're going through all these different tracks. Then they talk about the jukebox. They said, quote, we prepared lots of music in addition to course themes and made it so the game would automatically select the right track depending on the situation. During development, we called this the jukebox. For this, we created lots of arrangements of music composed for past Super Mario and Mario Kart games. And then she said, altogether over 200 for the jukebox, over 200 tracks, I should say, for the jukebox. These are all brand new arrangements, and we also did live recordings. We prepared pieces from quite a wide variety of musical genres. I believe those who are well-versed in video game music, as well as those who aren't, will enjoy listening to them. So there are over 200 tracks in this game. That is absolutely massive. That is a huge soundtrack for Mario Kart World, and based on what we've heard so far, that soundtrack is going to deliver, because oh my goodness, the Mario Kart sound team, like they know how to make a good song, a good bop and track, a good remix, that kind of thing. Very excited about that. They discuss the weather changing elements in the free roam mode. We get a little piece of concept art here showing Mario. He kind of looks ominous there. You know, he's just sitting there. What's he doing there? But it's cool to see all this different concept art for the different weather effects. Jukumaru says, we designed it so that a day in the game passes in around 24 minutes. I'm not sure if we knew exactly how long it takes for a game end game day to pass, but 24 minutes, that's 1 minute per hour. That makes sense. More on the music here, they say the jukebox feature will have you racing towards Bowser Castle while listening to Bowser's Road from Mario 64, or going for a nighttime spin while soaking in the Rainbow Road theme from Super Mario Kart. During the daytime, various bright and cheerful tracks play. In the evening and at night, the arrangements are more chilled. We recorded a band arrangement for the staff credits theme from Mario Kart DS in a style that fits this new game, and I personally was really moved when I listened to it driving around during the game's evening scenes. So yeah, the soundtrack is going to be just, the soundtrack in this game is going to be so good. I cannot wait to listen to everything that they did for it. Here they talk about the challenges of making the game fun when you're driving not only around corners, but also in a straight line, because it is this interconnected world. There are going to be straight lines from time to time, and that's why they decided to add the different gameplay mechanics like wall riding and riding on pipes, just to make it a little bit more dynamic when you are going down what is essentially just a straightaway. They specifically talk about how for rail riding and wall riding, they were referencing extreme sports like skateboarding, snowboarding, and BMX, which is really fun. Okay, next up we have a ton of concept art. I'll put it up on screen in full so you can kind of see through it in more detail, but I just love this concept art. It's so good. We need a Mario Kart World art book. I would absolutely buy that. A lot of Rosalina in here. I like that. A lot of Peach, of course. I like this one. I guess, is that Mario or Luigi? I think it's Mario in the car with like the suitcases on top with the fire flower. Really love that. Bowser and Bowser Jr. and the motorcycle in the little sidecar there. Mario chilling on the beach. Just some really great concept art. Daisy and Peach eating some ice cream while looking over the Mario Kart world map, or I guess the kingdom, we'll say. Yeah, the concept art here is awesome. Love this one of the scooter. Definitely reminds me of Akira Toriyama art. If you read Dragon Ball or anything like that, you know that man loved his vehicles in Dragon Ball. This reminds me of that a little bit, where you would have like those shots of Bulma like on a bike or something. That's what this reminds me of. Next up, they talk a lot about the food and how at one point they considered removing it at one point, but they decided it was necessary because, you know, they're traveling the world. You gotta have, you gotta have all these different tourist attractions and all these different foods. So here we have some arts of all different food types, or at least a lot of them. I love this one here with the little bitty bud on it. That's really cute. So some great concept art for the food here. Look at these eggs, man. Oh, those eggs look good. Yabuki said, originally we were creating the various outfits separately from the food, so we wondered if we could combine those two elements. So initially the food elements and the costumes were going to be a separate mechanic, which kind of makes sense because I'm going to be honest, even still, I think them being tied to the food during races doesn't really make that much sense. It feels like they were just like, well, we have both these things. We really want to have food be a part of the game. Let's just mash them together and make the costumes be what eating food does. But once you unlock them all, as I've talked about before, it's just, it doesn't really do it for me. It's like, I love the costumes, don't get me wrong. And I think having food is a fun idea. Of course, you get a speed boost as well, but it doesn't feel like they were necessarily designed in tandem, to be honest. We have some talk of the playable characters in the game. We have some nice concept art here of the cow. Of course, the iconic character from Mario Kart World, the cow. Ishikawa said, and then one of the designers came up with that silly sketch of a cow cruising along, and I thought to myself, this is it. So that's when they realized the course surroundings actually contain a lot of untapped resources. So kind of just, reusing background elements like the cow, like a lot of the enemies, why not go ahead and make them racers, which from what I've seen, seems to be a positive hit. Everybody's very happy about it. I think it's really cool to be able to play as like the sidestepper and stuff. I'm still hoping there's more that we don't know about in the game. Just give me as many as possible. Give me so many NPC characters, as they call them, or NPC drivers, they say, for these types of characters. I thought this was interesting given the booster course pass and the track design for a lot of those, because they have those alternating pathways for each lap where they have those big red arrows. The interviewer was asking about accessibility and making the game a little bit more approachable, and something they specifically wanted to make sure they weren't doing is adding a sharp turn with an arrow, which is really funny just given the booster course pass. I'm sure they saw the reception of that and they were like, well, this isn't great. It's a nice alternative to get the tour tracks in the game, but ultimately it wasn't the best design, I feel like, because you are racing at high speeds, like they say, when you have that sharp turn right. They say, quote, players will be racing each other at high speed, so we don't want to add in the distraction of which way am I supposed to go now. It's something that's been fundamental to the Mario Kart series to date. Yeah, I think at least for me, like the tour tracks, those are the only time I've been playing a Mario Kart game where it doesn't just flow naturally of like, oh, okay, I need to turn right now. Maybe it's because I'm so like, I've played all the other tracks so much and the tour tracks are a little bit newer to me, but like, when I played Mario Kart 8 for the first time, that wasn't a thing. But with the tour tracks and the booster course pass, some of it, I'm glad they got them in there. But the red arrow design, I don't think was the greatest. They talk more about the free roam mode and the P switches here. This clip I saw today, there's a mission where you have to play as the cow and you have to drive through an obstacle course of cows. So I'm really excited for the P switch stuff. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you interested in this? I know people were upset there's not like a proper story mode in the single player, but to me, this is kind of what I was expecting. This is essentially mission mode, just in more of like a free-form style, just almost like, open world, go find it, do it how in any order you want to. I actually really like this, and I'm excited to see all of the different types of challenges they have have in the game. And then for the final part of the interview, you know, they gotta pitch all the accessories and stuff. They talk about the Joy-Con wheel accessory. They talk about game chat and how you can talk to up to 12 people while playing the game, which is funny because it's a 24-player game. And they're really like, yeah, there's photo mode and the free roam. You know, just trying to encourage people to play with friends, which is great. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. Look at these toads fishing, dude. Just absolute legends. I hope they catch something good. I like this here, at least for me. I haven't been analyzing the footage as much as a lot of people, but I think this might be our first look at the UI for putting stickers on your car from the challenges that you get. So here is a look at that. And then just to close things off, we had some final words from Yabuki. He said, quotes, Mario Kart is a game where anything can happen. We developed this game hoping for players to experience those moments where they think to themselves, quotes, I can't believe what just happened. And I believe we've achieved just that. Even if it's been a while since you last played a Mario Kart game, I hope you'll be motivated to come back to the series and re-experience such moments. I'm sure some of you reading this right now have played Mario Kart 8. It's been over 10 years since that game was originally released. We'd like to thank everyone who's played it or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We believe that Mario Kart World makes the dawn of a new generation for the series, marks the dawn of a new generation for the series, so we'll hope you'll give it a try. Very exciting stuff. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. It's almost unbelievable that it's coming out in just 2 weeks now. A little over 2 weeks, I suppose, but really 2 weeks on June 5th. Man, it's, I mean, a new generation. They're marking the dawn of a new generation of Mario Kart, and it feels that way. It feels like a big deal. So let me know what you think of this interview in the comments down below. I was definitely most interested in the development timeline there of them talking about it starting in 2017 on Nintendo Switch, but then, you know, they pivoted to making it a Switch 2 title to make it run better and all that. Definitely a lot of interesting tidbits in this interview, but let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Mario Kart World content and Switch 2 coverage, like I said, leading up to launch at the beginning of the video. You can follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, check out my other channel at It's Amiibo, and click on one of these two videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks, peace.